All right, we are live. I just returned from Sderot from the south. This town of Sderot is basically the closest um, Israeli town to the Gaza Strip, at least on the northern border. There are farms called kibbutzes that are kind of all along the border of Gaza, but Sderot is the nearest kind of actual town. Sderot is used to being bombed from Gaza because they are the closest. They have bomb shelters in every home in Gaza. I'm sorry, in Sderot. They have bomb shelters about every 100 yards up and down the road in Gaza, and in Sderot. I keep saying Gaza. Um, it is probably one of the most heavily bombarded places on Earth, at least on a continuous years long basis. And it's so close to the Gaza Strip, just so you understand that what these people have to live with their entire lives. Sderot, when somebody fires a rocket from Gaza, people in Sderot have between 7 and 15 seconds to get to shelter. And so that's why everybody has a shelter in their home. And there are shelters up and down the street. If you're just walking to the grocery store, you may have to dive into a shelter. And tonight I got a very powerful reminder of what it's like to live in a place that is under terror attack, under threat of terror attack all the time, all the time. So, you know that it was a week ago when 1,500 terrorists broke through the fence from Gaza and came into Israel. They went door to door in some cases and just executed people. They kidnapped more than 150 people and took them back into Gaza. These are not soldiers. I mean, there were some, but they're old people, they're babies, they're little kids, 12-year-olds, things like that, that are being, held now, and God knows what hell they're experiencing in Gaza. But we saw the effects of that today. I just wanted to go live and kind of share my thoughts with you about what we just experienced. We left this morning and went down south. It's only about an hour and a half from here down to Sderot. So we left about noon and went down there, and we met up with. There was a by invite only tour of one of the kibbutzes that had been attacked a week ago. That tour had about 60 journalists maybe on it. So that's one thing that I hate to do those. I hate to do where you have a whole scrum of journalists all running around trying to get the same shot as the other guy. And but this was one way that we were able to get in and actually see the effects of what had happened a week ago on October 7th. So this kibbutz we went to was called Be'er, and so it's BE''EIR, and or IER, maybe something like that. Uh, it it was a community of about 700 farmers. These are families that uh, farmed. We saw banana uh, plants, believe it or not, growing in the desert. So I don't know if they were banana farmers or what, but these are legendary. These places are legendary. Uh, so on October 7th, the terrorists broke through the front gate of this place, and just their plan was to take over the kibbutz and hold all 700 people hostage, and start executing them, and torturing them and raping the women and that sort of thing. They know that because they've captured some of the people that were there, some of the terrorists, and those guys have admitted as such. They've said that that was what they had planned to do. They also found documents on these terrorists, some of them that were killed, that was their entire battle plan. They had their operations order and their frag orders, and all the things that described what they were supposed to do. It showed that they had actually built scale model mock-ups in Gaza of some of these kibbutzim, and had practiced and knew exactly where they were supposed to go. And so when October 7th came, they came to this kibbutz and they wreaked havoc. One of the most powerful images that sticks in my head is one house there. They're all kind of lined up. It almost looks like a military base in some way. Uh, but out in front of one of these, the very small yard in front of one of these houses, was just a whole lot of kids' ridey toys, the same kind of toys that my kids used to ride around on and have fun on. And they were just in just total disarray, just tossed all about. You could tell that absolute chaos had come to visit that poor family. Many of the houses were burned. In the houses that were burned, we talked to there were rescuers on site. They were actually still recovering bodies and parts of bodies from the kibbutz. There is a organization of it's a religious organization, Jewish religious organization that I guess in Judaism you have to bury every part of somebody who dies. So if they get blown up, you got to go around and collect up all the parts and figure out, make sure you get everything and get them all buried in order to do them justice in death. And so these guys are out collecting up body parts. The smell of death just permeated that whole the whole place. Some places worse than others. Some places it just absolutely turned your stomach. It's because there's still body parts rotting under the rubble of some of these houses. It's hard to even describe the smell. It's really hard to get that out of your head as well, to get it off your clothing. I feel like I still smell like that death smell, and I've smelled it a lot in my career. Uh, we toured around with a colonel who is the commander of the National Rescue um, team, National Search and Rescue Organization. He has been in the IDF for more than 30 years. He now leads this rescue unit, and their job was to go in once the kibbutz had been cleared by the soldiers, to go in and try to find and recover the bodies. There really was not much in the way of rescue to be done because there were those who survived and those who died. So far, they know there were 69 people who died. So just about 10% of the people in that kibbutz were killed. Uh, Many of them were children. This is one of the places where they found babies who had been beheaded. The colonel had photographs of these things on his phone. I didn't need to see them. I believe him. That's not the kind of thing you lie about. And you can take one look at that guy's face and know that he's not making this stuff up. I just, I, doing this job as long as I've done it, you get to the point where you don't need to see any more of that kind of, you know, uh, gory porn. It's just horrible stuff. Uh, as we were driving up to the kibbutz, we passed a absolutely massive, actually several camps, not just one, but three or four different camps, because we were driving essentially right along the Gaza border. This is only just a couple kilometers from the fence that goes into Gaza. And so there was a very large military presence. Merkava tanks, the very advanced Israeli tanks that were, I've never seen so many tanks in one place. There were tanks everywhere. There were trucks. There were artillery pieces and self-propelled howitzers and infantry fighting vehicles and armored personnel carriers and just everything. They are gearing up for a massive, massive attack, and they are not hiding. They're not hiding it. They are letting people know. Did you know that the IDF has an entire unit of soldiers and that speak Arabic, and it's their job to just literally smile and dial and make phone calls to people in Gaza and tell them, "We see where you are. Get out of that area because it's about to get blown up." And they're telling everybody in the northern half of Gaza to leave, get out. And they're saying, look, if you can't get out of Gaza altogether, then go to the beach, go to these certain places that we've set out that we're not going to bomb, and just stay out of our way because we are coming in and we are going to stay there until we accomplish our objective of absolutely eradicating Hamas's military capability. Eradicating Hamas is kind of like saying you're going to eradicate ISIS. ISIS is more of an idea than an organization. And in fact, although we say we've eradicated ISIS because they're not as much of a threat anymore, they're still around, and a lot of them just changed their uniforms. So instead of calling themselves ISIS, now they call themselves the Free Syrian Army. And they're still there in Syria. Many of them became Turkish soldiers overnight because Turkey supports ISIS. So one of the reasons why the Egyptians closed the border from Gaza into into Egypt, the one other border that shares a border with Gaza. And you would think that the Egyptians would let these people in because they're fellow Muslims, but the Egyptians don't want them because they are violent in Egypt as well. When they are allowed into Egypt, they blow things up there. And so nobody wants these people because they're just violent people. And so, thank you, Linda. Thanks for being on the podcast. I actually Oscar is stuck in Madrid and isn't here yet, but he's coming, and I'll go pick him up at the airport as soon as he gets here. So Egypt doesn't want these refugees from Gaza, which would number in the millions if they all left, right? And so the people in Gaza are kind of in a bad way. And I'm sorry to say, but Hamas has made it that way. This is all the fault of Hamas. I've seen people on TV. There was just a guy on Newsmax trying to blame this on Israel. That Israel's creating a humanitarian crisis. No, Israel did not create a humanitarian crisis any more than the United States created a humanitarian crisis on 9/11. This was Israel's 9/11. Make no mistake. This is the most deadly day for Jews since the Holocaust, and so this is all on Hamas. This is all on Hamas. This whatever happens to people in Gaza is 100% the fault of Hamas. And again, I've talked about the moral component of this a lot. You can go back and look at some of my previous podcasts where I've really gone in depth into the moral component to this. But the bottom line is you have to stand for people uh, who are being attacked unjustly. You have to stand against people who are attacking others, who are destroying the work of other men's hands unjustly. You have to stand against injustice. And you have to, uh, hopefully, Israel will do exactly what they say they're going to do. Thank you for the 9.99. That's very nice of you. You have to hope that Israel will not be uh, acting out of a sense of vengeance, but out of a very real, not cynical sense that they have to do something about this. You can't live next to somebody that is committed to your destruction. You just can't long term. That just doesn't work. Israel has tried it, and they've tried and tried and tried to get along with these people. And there were a lot of people before this happened. There were a lot of people who were allowed to leave Gaza, cross into Israel, and were allowed to, uh, you know, actually work in Israel and take the money back to Gaza and live in Gaza. So if Israel was allowing Palestinians to leave the Gaza Strip, to cross the border every day and go to work, where do you think they were working? They were working in the kibbutzes right around the edges of Gaza. One of the kibbutzes was the Be'er kibbutz that we visited today. And what they have found is that some of the employees, some of the Palestinians who were working on that kibbutz, who had jobs there working on the kibbutz, gave information to Hamas that helped them plan to come in and steal jewelry and money and things like that that were hidden, that were in places where they wouldn't have easily been found. But so it is clear that Hamas cannot coexist with Israel, and so if Israel is going to exist, period, exist, and they got to have a place to live, right? There's enough room for everybody to live. You'll hear it said that Gaza is one of the most densely populated places on earth. Well, I looked it up, and Gaza is populated at about the same, uh, per capita rate per kilometer, or per square kilometer, or per square mile, whatever you want to call it, as Boston or Philadelphia or someplace like that. So yeah, it's like a big city, and there's 2 million people that live there. It's about the size of Philadelphia, and so Boston's not that bad of a place to live. Philadelphia. Well, I wouldn't want to live there, but a lot of people like it. So it doesn't have to be that way. Is what I'm saying. Israel is not making it that way. As a matter of fact, you realize Gaza got its electricity and its water and most of its supplies from Israel. It's wastewater. It's black water went to a processing plant in Israel. Okay, they built a wastewater treatment plant in Israel to treat the wastewater out of Gaza. They've been supplying electricity and water to the people in Gaza for years, and this is how Gaza thanks them. The European Union a couple years ago paid a lot of money. Okay, so remember it was Palestine before 1948. There has never been a country called Palestine ever. Okay, this region was known as Palestine, but before 1948, it was part of Ottoman Turkey. It was not the Palestinians. It was not the Palestinians' country. There were in this region at that time, when it was known as the area of Palestine, there were Arabs, there were Turks, there were Christians, and there were Jews all living together. And they pretty much lived in harmony. And then the British took over after the Ottoman Empire fell in the British Mandate. And when the British Mandate expired, the British proposed, they said, look, we realize that these people are not going to be able to live like, on top of each other. They each need their own country, right? So the British proposed, okay, here's a piece of land for the Palestinians, and here's a piece of land for the Jews. The Jews accepted that. The Jews said, okay, that's good enough for us. We'll take it. And the Palestinians said, no, we want it all. Well, look, if your entire worldview is based on the fact or based on the premise that this whole race of people that's been living here literally for millennia doesn't deserve to have any place to live, not they can live in our country, but they don't deserve to live. We want to wipe them out, genocide off the face of the planet. Okay, yes, the Armenians have been here for a long time, and they're still here. There's still a lot of Armenians here. That's a whole different subject. Um, so, but if your whole worldview is based on we have to wipe out this entire race of people, I'm sorry, I can't support that, and any moral person shouldn't support it either. That's just sorry. And so that's what the Israelis are realizing now. We've talked to a lot of Israelis since I've been here just in the last few days. And what they're saying is, we're just realizing that there is no getting along with the Palestinians. As long as they hate us more than they love their children, there's no getting along with these. It's not going to happen. It's not going to work. Now, look, there are a lot of Arabs who live in Israel. There are a lot of Arabs that have been here for a long time, and they do well, and they don't get persecuted. There are a lot of Christians that lived here. The Christians get persecuted more than the Arabs do. That's something that bothers me. There's been a lot of persecution of Christians by the hardcore, extremist Jews recently, Armenians especially, and it's all over some stupid land deal. Some Armenian bishop sold a piece of land in the Armenian quarter to a Jewish guy to build a resort there, and didn't ask anybody. And then that guy is like persona non grata now. But so the Armenians have been very upset about that. The Armenian quarter in Jerusalem, it's been in their hands for hundreds and hundreds of years. And so So yeah, they're upset about it, but that has led to the backlash from these extremist Jews and clashes. And guys, could people just please try to get along? Good grief, you know, over a land deal. Now let's go back to what I saw today. Went down south. We went to this kibbutz. It's one of the kibbutzes where uh, about 10% of the entire 700 population was killed. We saw one place where the colonel who was on the rescue team said, in this burned out house here, I found a woman who had been shot through the back. And she was laying on something. And when we picked her up, she was laying on her dead child. And the child had been decapitated. Uh, I mean, wow. He had pictures to prove it. Uh, there was another place that was kind of like a infirmary or a clinic, and a lot of people had taken refuge there. They found 19 bodies, including the bodies of 7 or 8 children in there. Uh, they weren't all shot. There were some. He said there were 2 couples that were found in front of the clinic, and they had been handcuffed and executed, shot in the back of the head. But inside the clinic, there were 2 rooms that were burned out just beyond recognition, and they found 19 bodies in those 2 rooms. Those 19 people were likely burned alive, locked in those rooms, gasoline thrown in, and lit on fire. Uh, I look, you get a real sense for how horrific people can be to one another when you spend your life going from one war zone to another. And I've seen a lot of mayhem and chaos in my 20 years doing this job. But I have to say, I don't think I've ever experienced, I mean, firsthand, there's been a couple times. I saw a guy get burned to death in South Africa one time. But uh, th- there's only so much horror that people can visit on one another. But suffice it to say that it was calculated and intentional, and dead is dead, whether you get shot or burned or run over by a tank. But uh, this was not just killing people to kill them. This was killing them in a way to humiliate them and to desecrate them. And the level of hatred is just really difficult to comprehend, especially for people who live in the West. If you come to the West, you know, we rarely see that kind of hatred. But I fear that we may. I fear that we're going uh, to, where are the headless babies? They were still picking up body parts while we were there. I have video, I have pictures, and believe me, I could smell. You can smell the rotting body parts out there. There's video out there of people being beheaded. I've seen it at that kibbutz. That colonel that we were with had photographs of babies that had been beheaded. Okay, so yeah, you think it's fake? Get off my channel. You're wrong. You're just wrong, and everybody knows you're wrong. You're making an ass of yourself. If you really say that it's fake, that this massacre did not happen, you're just making an ass of yourself, and you ought to be ashamed. I mean, you ought to. It would be very hard for me to look myself in the mirror if I believed like that. And you should be ashamed. That's all there is to it. So thanks for being here, but you're wrong. So, and I know without a doubt because I was there and saw it with my own eyes today, just a few hours ago. We went from there to Sderot, the town of Sderot. There's massive buildup of forces, uh, and they were already shooting artillery now and then into Gaza, and there were air raids of Gaza shooting rockets into Sderot. So we had to wear our body armor. We had to stay close to the shelters and that sort of thing. Didn't have to take shelter yet at all, but there are a couple times where people said we should. We did our live hits there. There's a police station there that was blown up 4 days ago. So this is a week ago was this big attack, but there have still been continuous attacks going on every day since the 7th of October. So it hasn't ended. There are still infiltrators in the south of Israel. As a matter of fact, they they killed the last infiltrator in that kibbutz we were on today, yesterday. There was still a guy hiding out in there for a week. Unbelievable. And in 4 days ago, a suicide bomber ran into the police station in Sderot, and this is 8 kilometers maybe from the border crossing, right? So I mean, this guy pumped it in there and hid out for 3 or 4 days, and then ran into the police station and detonated himself and murdered 20 people. That police station was just a pile of rubble. There was nothing left of it. So that was a big bomb. This guy had been carrying. But the thing that's going to stick with me forever is on the bus, not the bus stop. Well, it is a bus stop, but it's a bomb shelter. All the bus stops in Sderot are bomb shelters because they have to be. But on the back side of that bomb shelter, right in front of across from the police station, there was you could see a trail, a thick brown trail coming from the direction of the police station across the road and around behind the shelter. And you go around behind the shelter, and there's just a massive dried puddle of blood, and the blood is just smeared on the wall of the back of the shelter where somebody died. Somebody was hurt very, very badly in the bombing and ran over there with their dying breaths and slumped against that wall and bled to death. And man, that's fresh. That's fresh. So listen, it's going to get pretty sporting. You need to stay tuned because things are going to start happening quickly. There's a good chance that the invasion is going to kick off maybe tonight, maybe tomorrow. I was saying from the 15th to the 18th. Okay, so today is the 14th. I've been saying for a few days it was probably going to happen between the 15th and the 18th. So we will see. We'll see what happens. I will do my best to bring you ground truth. I'm going to just tell you what I see. And if you like it, great. If not, tough. I'm not here to make you feel good. If what I say makes your tummy hurt, you don't have to watch. So thanks for watching. Thanks for being a part of the Hot Zone. And for whoever gave $9.99, I didn't even know you could do that. Thank you very much. Do I not have a moderator? Nope, just me. I'm a one-man band, man. I write, edit, shoot, film, everything. Put it all together. I'm doing it all on my own. Now, when Oscar gets here, Oscar will. Oscar and I help each other out, and that's a lot of fun. That's really great. And so, be praying for us. And thank you for all your prayers. I really appreciate it. Love you guys. We'll see you later.